How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Members of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People are gathering in New York City this week for their annual convention. The country's largest civil rights organization celebrates its 100th anniversary, the same year the first black president of the United States took office. As he did last year during the campaign,
You know, it is always humbling to speak before the NAACP.
President Barack Obama speaks to the convention this week.
If you think how this country was 100 years ago and how it is today.
NAACP chairman of the board, Julian Bond.
Other people helped and other people did things, but we are the most responsible for these changes, and I don't think there would be a President Barack Obama without us.
We shall overcome.
The country and the NAACP have traveled a great distance in a century. Lynchings and race riots, Jim Crow laws, and segregation defined the boundaries of black existence in 1909 and spurred a group of activists, some blacks, mostly whites, to found the NAACP in New York. Their mission was simple, yet seemed impossible: real equality of rights and eliminating hatred and racial discrimination.
It's a battle we have to win, and it's time for us to fight.
Over the decades, the NAACP broke through those boundaries one by one, methodically, battling in the streets.
The NAACP feels that this is the time for all citizens to arise.
And battling in the courts. Before he was the first black Supreme Court justice, Thurgood Marshall led the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, the battering ram that knocked down doors barring blacks from graduate schools, from voting in Texas primaries, from interstate travel, from interracial marriage. Winning the landmark Brown versus the Board of Education case, Marshall's team cast separate but equal into history's trash bin.
Today's opinion makes a clear-cut determination that the Negro school children must be given their rights.
100 years of facing foes.
If the NAACP pushes for violence, I think they will be met force with force.
Forcing change, like the groundbreaking Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Hello, Roy. So glad to see you all.
And changing minds. The NAACP pressed Hollywood to recognize black talent. Today it does.
I'm gonna be a registered voter, oh Lord.
And after decades of voter registration and getting out the vote, it's helped change the complexion and the attitude of the electorate and the elected. Predominantly white Philadelphia, Mississippi, where 3 civil rights workers were slain in 1964, this year voted James Young its first black mayor.
We've had some dark history, but this election proves that there are a lot of minds that are changing.
So here I am in Pueblo.
91-year-old Lula Mae Clemens has lived that change. When she graduated from junior college in Pueblo, Colorado in 1939,
our pictures were segregated from the other students.
In the back of the book.
In the back of the book.
She joined the local NAACP right after that. With a master's degree from Columbia and later a PhD, she got a job with the Riverside, California school system in 1956 over fierce objections from some school board members who said she wasn't qualified.
My education at an Ivy school was not good enough for Riverside, California. It was mind-boggling.
She joined the Riverside NAACP. Longtime members of the chapter remember their struggles. Gay Caroline.
And I went to the segregated school.
Emil Moore.
I used to get calls. I used to get phone calls when I was president of this organization here in the city.
What kind of calls?
Hate calls. It's humiliating.
Mm-hmm.
Miley Davis.
That's why we fought.
We will try to talk it out first.
All in favor of that, please signify by the usual sign of aye.
Woody Rucker Hughes is current president of the Riverside chapter of the NAACP.
We don't have a problem in terms of putting our feet to the street, but when we do, we don't retreat.
And Riverside today?
I think that we have a very inclusive city.
Since I arrived here in 1960, it's a tremendous change.
Change unimaginable 100 years ago. A black president who addresses black issues unflinchingly.
Any fool can have a child. That doesn't make you a father. It's the courage to raise a child that makes you a father.
An Attorney General, Eric Holder, dedicated to equal justice.
In racial terms, the country that existed before the civil rights movement is almost unrecognizable to us today.
Which some say begs the question, is the NAACP needed anymore? Is it even relevant? Is it time for the venerable organization to say, mission accomplished?
I asked myself the question, if the NAACP disappeared, would anybody notice? And I had to say, I don't think they would.
Clarence Page is a Washington-based syndicated columnist for the Chicago Tribune.
Their agenda is complete. It's accomplished. They actually did it by the end of the 60s. The troubles afflicting black America, colored people, have more to do with poverty and economics than with discrimination. May I remind everybody, we got an African-American president now?
Well, remember, we are not the National Association for the Advancement of One Colored Person. We're the NAACP, Association for the Advancement of Colored People.
Julian Bond.
We crossed a barrier, we haven't crossed the finish line.
This country needs the NAACP because when we lift up even one community, we ultimately improve the way that all people in this country are treated.
Benjamin Todd Jellis is the next generation, the new 35-year-old president of the century-old organization.
While we were the children of the dream, we had come of age just in time to find ourselves the most murdered generation in this country and the most incarcerated generation on the planet.
Jellis and Bond say with one of 15 black males behind bars, with black students in inferior schools, with almost half of black homeowners in subprime mortgages,
NAACP National Headquarters.
There's plenty of work to do.
We've sued some of the nation's leading mortgage companies, charging that they targeted racial minorities for these subprime loans that they knew the people couldn't pay back, and they did it deliberately.
I think it's hard sometimes for people who remember when there was a big iconic enemy like Jim Crow. That icon is broken into a whole bunch of different villains. Predatory lending, over-incarceration, schools that are falling apart.
The NAACP says its goal is to one day work itself out of business.
We like to hope that the day will come when we can look around and say that the gaps between blacks and whites in this country have vanished and disappeared, and if it takes 100 years more, we're going to keep trying.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.